Hello, everyone. Unfortunately, our live was not working this morning. I don't know why, so some kind of technicality, but in any case, Nicole Schur is here with me this morning, and we are going to kind of dive deep into understanding personalities and people's needs. And I feel like it's really good for this group because it applies to the workplace, and we all have to deal with each other, but also it applies to every area of your life. And she has her book out in different areas related to parenting is her newest one, and she also has it for dating. So anyway, we're going to have a little conversation about that this morning, give you a little bit of background because everybody is in the workplace, whether you're physically in the workplace or you're virtually or hybrid, whatever your situation is. I think these are valuable concepts for you to know. So anyway, I'm going to pass it over to Nicole to introduce herself, and then we'll talk a little bit more about these concepts and how it can help you.
So my name is Nicole, and I have a little bit of a background. My undergrad was in conflict resolution and business, and then I did my master's in industrial organizational psychology. And some of the things I started to see is that we don't do a lot of soft skills in the workplace, and we bring ourselves. And one of the things that I've noticed is we don't do a lot of talking before we put teams together. We don't do a lot of communications around what we need and to be successful. And when we don't talk about that kind of thing, it really doesn't set things up for success. And we really need to, well, first of all, when we start with employment, it needs to start off as a relationship because we are in a relationship. And that is something that I've really, really come to realize is, and I think I said this to Oliver, who I think is awesome. And I know your teammates with Oliver, is that when we go into a workplace, and I'm just going to just jump right in. I'm really good at jumping right in. When we go into a workplace, it's like, what can you give me? What can you give me? Versus, okay, we're going to be a team. And it's a relationship. When we first meet people, we don't go, what are you going to give me? Come on. I really want to know what you're going to give me. Okay, that's not going to work. We build the relationship. We've got to go in with an attitude of how are we going to work with each other in a way where we're complementing each other. And there's some things we have not really been working on as far as relationships in the workplace. And that's part of the reason we're having the crises we're having, is we're not going in as a partnership. We're going in with it not having a mentality of what are we both worth? And when we don't treat each other with a worth mentality, their conflicts arise. And so this is one of the reasons why the needs language is to me so powerful, because you're looking at it from a worth perspective and you're coming at it from that perspective. And you think employers really need to look at employees from that perspective, but then because it starts with the employer. And when you give that happiness in the workplace, and as IOs, we know this, we've studied this, you have higher retention. When you have higher retention, you have a higher, your rates go up of employee satisfaction, your profits go up, and you have better diversity, better inclusion, culture. You have a better culture rate. Your culture is happier. You have more diversity of employees, and those kinds of things. Innovation increases. And so this is just one little piece of innovation that it can encourage innovation. And so that's kind of, again, where the needs language starts to move, is how do you work your teams together?
And I think that's so important too, because without your employees, what do you have? I mean, they're like the number one important asset for a company. And I think that, especially with everything going on in the last year and a half, employers are starting to realize that, you know what, if I don't treat my employees well, they're going to go elsewhere. There are other jobs available, or they might start their own job, become an entrepreneur. So I think that conversation is happening, and there people are starting to value employees and what else can I do for them? What else can I provide? how can I make this a great work environment? So
Mhm.
I think that's so valid and so important. And all those things that you mentioned, it's like a no-brainer, like everything increases in the company if we can just try to understand each other and appreciate each other for what we are. And nobody's going to be an expert at everything. That's not why you hire people. You
Mhm.
pick people for what they're meant to do, like what they're going to be successful at. And obviously, figure out ways for people to communicate. And that's actually what I liked in your book when I was reading it. I thought it was interesting how you have like 4 different types of personalities, and people need to understand, like, if you're dealing with like this type of important person, what does that mean versus like, a value person and so on. So I thought maybe you could share that with us too, because I don't know how many people know that aspect of your book. I thought it was actually very cool, especially for those of us who are interested in personality. And I know there's definitely like an element in organizational psychology that loves that, like with all the different tests and assessments. So I'll let you share that with us about that.
So one thing we noticed about personalities is that it's really quite complicated. And we are. I'm not trying to say that we aren't complicated. There's so much, but we're also in a very fast-paced world, and we don't have the opportunity to unbox each other in a complicated way. When we meet each other, we don't have, I mean, I love we have other modalities and they're great, but they have so many components to them that by the time you're done unboxing things, it's like it's so many things to go through and do this. We wanted something so quick and so simple. You could walk in a room and you go, okay, now I know how to deal with that person. So we went down to 4: important, right, value, control. And you kind of have an idea when I say those words. Okay, so I have an idea when I hear important. If I see an important person, I kind of have an idea what's going to happen with that important person. So if I see a right person, okay, I kind of have an idea. If I see a control person, I have an idea. And if I see value. So an important person, just to break it down, is that person who likes to be seen, that center of attention. And a value person's cost benefit. A right person is about belief. They like to be right. And a control person's about the environment. They like things particular. Now, what's nice about this is we all have a language style around this, and we're 2 out of the 4. And people have come to me and they said, aren't we all 4? Well, kind of, but we're going to do it through that lens. So I'm an IV, important value. And when I go into a place, if I look like I'm taking control, I'm doing through an important lens. So I'm about priority. I'm about goals. I'm about get it done. But I'm also going to be seen. And people have gone, well, yeah, you're kind of, you're trying to be seen. No, I'm not. Believe me, I'm not. We'll be in a restaurant. All of a sudden the music will stop and I'll say something. It'll be really loud. Everyone's heads will turn. Shoot, that happened again. Darn it, how'd I do that? My subconscious mind will just do it, not meaning to. And so when you understand this, and you may not have important in you, you're going to be a little more understanding that, okay, they're not meaning to do that. That's just how they are. So now you have more of an understanding, and you're going to go, okay, that person is not trying to be that way, but they're needed in the workplace. Or a right person can sometimes be like, oh my gosh, that person's so opinionated. I wish they would just stop with that opinion. Now you know that maybe you can go pull them in your office and say, hey, look, I know you really believe strongly about this. I don't want to say, don't believe this way. I just want you to be aware that other people may not, and this may be appropriate at a different time. Mm-hmm. And we want you to believe this way. We need people who believe strongly. We need social justice people. We need those belief people. And so we need to not tell right people that they're wrong. We need them to have time to process that. We need to have them have those beliefs. The belief is strong. They make things happen. And that is very vital. And so, but it's understanding how that works. It's understanding that right people a lot of times are very challenging. They like to challenge things. But by challenging that, laws change. Things happen. We need that. Right. Then you have your control people. very vital. But if you don't give them all the steps, they're going to freak out on you. Going to freak out. And so it's vital that when you can't give them all the steps, to preface. Huge. And people don't understand, why should I have to preface? I'm the boss. You know what? Just deal with it. No.
Right. You do what people need, right?
Give a people what they need. Hey, you know, this is super challenging. I can deal with your frustration. I can hear your frustration here. I was just given another step. I'm sorry that you're having to deal with this. This is just, I can see you being frustrated. And now let's look at it from this, and then a value person sometimes has a hard time making a decision because always this is going to cost, benefit, cost, benefit, cost, benefit. Oh God, how do I make a decision? This it's going to cost me. Oh, you know, and when you're in a relationship, you put two value people together. They are like the Jungle Book characters from the old Jungle Book movie. What do you want to do today? The vultures on the branch. What do you want to do today? I don't know. What do you want to do today? I don't know. Oh, don't start that again. You know. And so, and we all have great, wonderful things, but we all have our struggles in it. And so it gets really interesting. So if you have a control important, they are great. You've got your steps and your priorities. Oh my gosh. But if you have an important person that doesn't have control, they're not going to be, they may be able to prioritize, but they can't do steps for the life of them, or vice versa. You have a control right. They may be able to do all these steps, but they may not be able to prioritize. And so now you've got, oh, now I know how to put people together. Or look at rewards. An important person's like, yes, everybody know how great of a job I did. Control person, you reward them in front of a bunch of people. Oh, they are not happy. You've messed with their environment because they are all about the environment. They do not want to be seen if they do not have any importance in them. They want their environment a certain way. You just messed with their environment. And sometimes belief people like to be a little snarky, the right people, and mess with people's environment because it's a fun thing to do. And so now you've got all these personalities and how they function and knowing and aligning. So that's the other thing. If you've got two right people who are opposite in their beliefs, you've got to learn how to work with that, because now you've got some, polarizing things. That's how we had some of the political issues we had, because now their rights are not aligning, but they still both have that belief. So that's how conflicts then end up in the workplace. Perfect example. You put let's say you put a control value with a important right. They do not speak any language. And if you have now I know love languages have to do with like Gary Chapman, but they're an outside thing, and they're the way we communicate and express caring for each other. It has nothing to do with woo-woo stuff. That's just a connection thing or interest. There's other interests you have. Let's say you have nothing there that is connecting you in any aspect. You are going to have such conflict between those two. And they come into a manager's office. There's nothing connecting them. They have no needs language, especially there. You're going to have such conflict. You can't tell them to get along because there's nothing connecting them, especially with the needs language, because the needs language is how is your personality, your identity, how you communicate, how you see the world through your lens.
So so here's my question. So what can employers do when they already have their employees, right? And they have to get them to work together. What do they do? And how do people figure out, what characteristics they are? So how do I know if I'm the important value or if I'm the control? Because I was thinking for me, I'm like, I feel like I have certain aspects of all of them, but the question is what weighs more? What's more of a priority? And does it ever change in any situation, or does it seem to stay constant? What do you think?
It stays pretty constant. You kind of know. And you know by the language you speak. You know by how you present yourself in your world. You know by how I mean you know by how you present yourself in the world. For example, I know that like example, the music thing. All of a sudden the music will stop and I go, oh no, I did it again. You know by people will always tell you when you walk in a room, everybody notices you. That's just happens. You know that people will go, how come you're always drawing attention to yourself? Could you stop that?
Mhm.
People will make comments like, you know, yeah, how come you're always controlling? You know, you just seem controlling. You're
Mhm.
stifling. You know, people will tell you, why do you, you know, you're just kind of, you're really polarizing. You know, you're just kind of snarky. A lot of times, right? People are kind of snarky kind of sense of humor.
Gotcha.
You know, you're kind of more of a, I mean, why are you why are you so indecisive all the time? Can't you make a decision? You know, you're sometimes a little more quiet. You're usually a little more predominant in one. Um, there are just certain things you'll start to manifest a little bit more around them. The language you speak a lot of times
Okay.
will start to show that. Again, my books are more of an introductory than anything. I'm working on a survey. It's more of you'll start to show certain words. Like for example, right and important people are a little more flashier. You'll see that they are the most flashiest out of everybody. They are the most flashiest. They are just like your most flamboyant people. They're always wearing the brightest colors. Um, and you'll see the combos as they control important will be more how they control themselves and their importance. They're going to be more put together. And a important value is going to be more of the in between the right and the control important. They're going to be they're not going to be as controlled because they don't have that control, but they're not going to be as flamboyant as that right and important. So you'll start to see how they maneuver within them. The control right is going to be your very dominant, more military, because they're going to be controlled, but they're going to be more that belief. They're going to be a very stern almost. And you're going to see also how people are gravitated because we meet people more in romantic partnerships. In one of them, you're gonna when you're dating someone, you're definitely in, but your friendships, your people will not usually be friends with someone who doesn't speak their needs language.
Right.
I don't really do well with control right people because unless I have a connector, which means a connector is someone who is meeting me an important or value, I don't hang out with control right people.
So people, so everybody has their two predominant needs, right? So in the best case scenario, two people should have one in common, right? Because they have a
Yes.
way to be able to connect. But if they
Mhm.
have neither in common, that makes it very difficult.
Exactly. So as a manager, it makes it really challenging if you are a control right and you have an important value. You're probably going to get rid of the important value.
Yeah.
And most managers tend to, from my experience, tend to be more control rights or control or rights, control value, right value, important rights. They tend to, a lot of people, there, it just like it fluctuates, but a lot of people, you know, if you do surveys, you'll start to see who likes to be the managers and who doesn't. There's certain people who say, you'll hear, I don't want to be a manager, never want to be a manager. And if you do a survey, you'll find that it's usually people who are a little more laid back. They don't want to take control.
Right. It's interesting for sure for the workplace. So you have a book coming out for the workplace too, right? That you were saying. So I think that's going to be really cool. So definitely we'll share that on the group, because I know we need that. We need it in our personal lives, because we would deal with it with, being a parent and dealing with it in relationships, and, and all of that, and friendships. But we're also at work for so many hours of our day,
Yeah.
and being able to deal with people, that's, I feel like, one of the toughest things in work, because we're different, even if we share two of those same needs, language, like you mentioned, we're still different. We're impacted by different experiences. We see things different ways. And sometimes trying to compromise, is tough, but important though, for sure.
Important. One thing I would highly, highly, highly suggest managers do, or employers do, especially of smaller companies, is make sure that they, to be well-rounded, have someone where if they don't have that language, have a connector. Because what happens is when you miss out on having all four, you're really missing out. Because again, I'm going to be irritating to a control right, just like a control right's going to be irritating to me. Just like to a control value, an important right's going to be irritating to them. And sometimes important right can be irritating to me if it's a little too flamboyant, because the important can be competitive, or the right is I'm not used to, or vice versa to anybody else. I mean, this is just an example, or a control right with another control right, because you're jockeying for position.
Mhm.
And so it's good to have, and when I say connector, again, it's because like a control value is going to be a connector with me with a control right, because I have nothing in common. So it's good to have not only other conflict resolution skills like nonviolent communication, crucial conversations, verbal judo, which is some of the things we are not taught in IO psychology, which I would highly, highly recommend, is learning communication models. We really, really need that. We do not have that enough. But also knowing personality types and knowing how they communicate in the conflict resolution model. Because that's really, really key, because I've heard multiple times, and I'm sure you've heard this, they, a lot of times because of personalities, will let go of the person who works really hard and does amazing work for the company, and keep the person who's on the computer all day, surfing the web, not really doing anything, because they know how to schmooze. And it's because of that EQ type of thing. And a lot of times it's those kinds of things. So we need to understand that these are factors that play huge, because it's knowing, these are attunement, these are alignment. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote this book, was because I saw that if an important person goes in with a control right, it may be that important person's goal oriented, working hard, doing a good job, but their importance may question their right by being seen and too much, and not knowing it. And the two of them are conflicting in that, or vice versa. And so these are things that we are automatically doing in our subconscious mind that we don't even know we're doing.
And it's true. And I think sometimes employers are looking at the work quality, the work product, but they're not thinking so much about the people and what's going on in their heads, and might be what else is going on in their lives. And I think they need to do that and see the whole person, and not just, what work is getting done at the end of the day or at the end of the week, and start questioning. So I think those are some really good ideas. I think it's really interesting and fascinating for sure. So I'm looking forward to seeing your workplace book too. I think that's good. You've done a lot of good research, and I'm going to sit down and think about myself a little bit more now too, and see what that is, and how that impacts other people that I work with too. Even as a parent, I have 3 kids and they're all a little bit different, and just thinking about their personalities and how I communicate with them, and what am I expecting? So it's good. I think it's good. So I appreciate you taking the time to be with us and share this. And your book is an easy read, and it's very interesting. So I will post the link too, because they can find it on Amazon. I got it through Kindle, which was pretty easy. Everybody can do that. Or, like I said, you can buy the actual hard copy. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's good. So is there anything else that you wanted to share with the IOPs? Any other takeaways?
Well, I will be having one for teachers coming out too, and I will be working on training manuals. Again, this is going to be a series, and I'm going to make each one very, very quick and easy. There will be like several series. I started with dating because it was the easiest one, parenting, and parenting does affect IO. There will be one for workplace, partnership, teaching, because teaching is another aspect that is part of IO for us to go in. And there are a few other ones and training. So it is something that is to be studied, and it will be going further. Again, this is something to discover about yourself. It is a process. This isn't something we just kind of came off the fly. We've been working on this for over a year now. And I mean, even last night, there was more I discovered regarding finding more attunement and balance within myself, and even healing. There's a lot of healing that can come within this, within your own personality, and really focus on what I've learned the most is it is a communication model. We bring ourselves and how we communicate with others. And really, it's helped me release a lot of frustration with others, because now I can go, I understand that person.
Right.
Hmm.
Right.
So,
you know where they're coming from, and then you can't be as upset because they just can't see it this way, and this is how they are. And I think that helps.
yeah. And so I think that was one of the most powerful things, is that it is a conflict resolution communication model. And as a manager, as a boss, it can be extremely helpful to know who not to put with who, and not, if you have to put that person with that other person, how to have a connector in, or how to explain to them how to communicate within that conflict.
I think that's good. I mean, my background as a teacher, that was something I thought about too, because we did do a lot of like cooperative group learning, and I had to think about the personalities and who was going to take the lead and who was going to need some help, and who would be perfect with who. So yeah, I mean, you don't always get it right, but I think it's something important to consider, so everybody's successful.
But as a teacher, I'm going to take 2 more seconds of your time. I know it, but
No,
as a teacher, couldn't you see that if you would have known who were the important children and been able to put more of a understanding over these kids, how much more it would have helped in the classroom?
I know. I tried to think about that too, because you're like trying to think about like, what are their strengths as learners and how do they communicate with others? And if this was a shyer child, make sure that they're in a certain group. And sometimes I would pair up, just the kids who are like more the leaders, and force somebody to take a lead, and some of the shyer kids, who would struggle, and force somebody to take the lead instead of just, waiting for somebody to figure out the right answer. So yeah, it was always kind of interesting doing the projects and, whatever class I was teaching. So yeah, I think the personality information, I think it's so valuable. I think it like really honestly everywhere. And I'm glad you're doing that research and in all those areas, because it's needed. So,
yeah.
So cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a great day. And I'm really excited about what you and Oliver are doing too, because it just, that needs to be done. We need to be having models that are doing transformation and change in the workplace, because that is where,
for sure,
where abundance and growth is going. And we need our economy to change and have, our mindsets with employers to change, because
yeah, I mean, with Evolve, I mean, we're looking at problem solving, and for sure in the workplace, there are always going to be problems in so many areas. And what do you deal with those problems? And what is it violating for you? And how do you come up with solutions? And how do you collaborate? So yeah, I'm excited for that to spread too, because I know it's so needed. And obviously even in personal lives, trying to figure things out. So yeah. So cool. Okay. Well, thanks again for your time. I hope you have a good rest of the day. And yeah, you'll keep us in touch on everything else that's going on, and looking forward to the workplace book.
Definitely. We'll see you later. Have a great day. Bye-bye.